Hello everyone, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis. Welcome to today's video. Today's going to be a brand new series of Warhammer 40,000 Codex analysis where we go through a 40k Codex and analyse the heck out of it. So, who's on the chopping block today? Craftworld Eldar, one of the most powerful armies in both 6th and 7th edition of 40k, and probably, if you're watching this in the extended future, will probably still be one of the stronger armies in the game. Craftworld Eldar is just good. Originally I was planning to do Tau here, but changed my mind. Going to finish my Tau Hub project first. So this is going to start off with Craftworlds, but we're also going to do Dark Eldar following this, and if we get time, we may also have a look at Harlequins. So today, for the first episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Army Special Rules, the Relics, the Warlord traits, the Psychic Powers, because there's a lot of Psychic Powers here. We may or may not cover the detachment here. We will be covering the detachment. I just don't know if I'll cover it here because it's a formation of formations. I might cover its command benefits and things here, but we'll come back to it at the end of the series. With that all said, let's see if we can work out what makes Craftworld Eldar tick. Let's go. So, let's start with Army Special Rules. The first one is Ancient Doom. A model with this special rule has hatred against demons of Slaanesh or models with the mark of Slaanesh, like Noise Marines or anyone who's been given the mark of Slaanesh, really. I can't think of anyone outside Noise Marines, Chaos Marines, and Chaos Demons. I don't think it's not like the Demon tag, which is around in other places. Furthermore, however, when making fear tests, a unit containing at least one model with this special rule suffers a -1 penalty to its leadership if it's engaged in combat with a unit with at least one model with mark of Slaanesh or Demon of Slaanesh. So, individual models gain hatred, but their unit takes the -1 penalty. Now, I don't know if every unit in this army has the penalty. I'll just go and have a look through a few at random, and we'll see. So, random Eldar Warwalkers, they have it. The other vehicles do not. This. Support batteries do. It looks like pretty much all the Eldar non-vehicles or things with a weapon skill. But if it's got a weapon skill, it has Ancient Doom. Pretty much, anyway. So your entire army hates Slaanesh, but is -1 leadership when taking fear checks against Slaanesh. This is really not bad. Eldar leadership is high, though it does also affect allies, so allies will also be at -1 leadership to that fear check, but it doesn't matter, your leadership will be pretty high anyway. So that's just pretty good. The second one is Battle Focus, and this one is pretty well known. A unit composed entirely of models, so you need to have no allies in here, with the Battle Focus special rule can either shoot and then run, or run and then shoot in the same shooting phase. The unit must complete both actions before you move on, otherwise the chance to make the second action is forfeit. So, shoot and run. It's just good. Couple of conditions, however. A model cannot run if it fired a heavy weapon during the same shooting phase unless it is relentless. Similarly, a model that has run cannot then fire a heavy weapon in the same shooting phase unless it is relentless, and models that cannot run by default, i.e. slow and purposeful, gain no benefit from Battle Focus. I can't think of anything that's slow and purposeful right now, but it's something to remember. So you can't just be sprinting around firing rocket launchers. Even if you would be snap firing, you can't do it at all. If you've got relentless though, no worries. They're the two army special rules. Now we're going to look at the Warlord traits. These Warlord traits, as ever, are a mixed bag. They're quite good, but not all of them are good. So the first one is Ambush of Blades. This is a one-use only ability. Declare your Warlord is using it at the start of one of your shooting or assault phases. For the duration of that phase, the Warlord and all friendly units with the Eldar faction within 12 inches of him reroll to wound rolls of 1. This one you're going to have to know when to use, but it's a very powerful ability if you can use it correctly. If you can use it just as your entire army hits melee, or just before your entire army hits melee, if you're doing a shooting-based force, you can easily do some serious damage. Because your hit rolls are generally quite good in Eldar, because you have decent weapon skill and ballistic skill, your wound rolls are going to be the issue. So it's pretty good, and it does also apply to the Warlord if he's got a badass melee weapon. Number 2, an Eye on Distant Events. D3 units in your army gain Scout. Pretty good. If I remember correctly, Scout also means outflank. I know Death Copters used to have outflank because they were scouts. So If Scout gains outflank, then this just gets a little bit even more better. But this is just generally quite good to get yourself a little bit better set up. Let's say there's a tall building just outside your deployment zone and you've got your heavy fire troops just sat behind it. Now you don't have to spend your movement phase, you can just move straight up it. If you've got combat units that maybe just had to set up out of cover, you can now just sidle them into cover. It's only D3 units, but it's still good. Number 3, Falcon's Swiftness. The warlord and his unit add 3 to the dice roll when determining how far they can run. Normally, this means D6 plus 3. There are some ways to manipulate this, which we'll cover later in the video. So this means that your army is ridiculously agile, and with battle focus, this is very, very good. Bear in mind that because you should roll warlord traits before deployment, if this means that you were going to set your warlord up with heavy troops, you might want to change your plan if you get this, just because you don't want to be giving up the run moves to fire their heavy weapons and vice versa. Number 4 is Fate's Messenger. The warlord rerolls all saving throw results of 1. Not counting the named characters, because I don't know what their warlord traits are off the top of my head. The average Eldar HQ has a 3+ save for an Autarch, or a Farseer Skyrunner. Uriel is locked, whereas things like Farseers, Warlocks, and Spirit Seers have no save, but they have an invulnerable, which is, I believe, a 4+. It may vary, it could be 4+, 5+ invulnerable save. Let's have a look, actually. They'll often have, where is it? I'm sure I saw what this was that they had. Maybe not, but probably they're going to have a 4+ invulnerable save. So 3 up armor or 4 up invulnerable, and you're re-rolling 1s to save. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's not ridiculous. I mean, I should know from playing Age of Sigmar, 3s re-rolling 1s is good, 4s re-rolling 1s is kind of average. But it's pretty helpful. I would certainly not say no to it. Number 5, Mark of the Incomparable Hunter. The warlord has Splitfire. This is really only going to come into play if you have a very specific loadout for your warlord compared to his unit. So realistically, if you're going to take if you get Mark of the Incomparable Hunter as your warlord trait, you'll definitely want to be thinking about where you deploy a little more carefully. Obviously, Eldar HQs have a long list of options, and I'm not going to go and look at the Autarch's weapon list, but I've seen it before, and it's pretty long. So you may want to think about giving him something varying from what his unit does, on the off chance you get this. And if you do if you don't get this, then make it so that it will function. So for example, you might take a split fire mode weapon if one exists, or you might take a high strength weapon with a bad AP because you can use it on infantry, but if you get this, you can use it on tanks whilst your infantry does its thing. Something to think about. Number 6, Seer of the Shifting Vector. Friendly units with the Eldar faction arriving by Deep Strike do not scatter as long as the first model is placed within 12 inches of the warlord. This is kind of a stock teleport homer. There are a few deep striking units in this army. You can deep strike, I believe you can deep strike jetpikes, could be wrong though, but things like Swooping Hawks, Warp Spiders, they'll certainly benefit from this. You don't have the Terminator equivalent as you do in other armies, but you'll certainly get some benefit out of this if things have deep strike. If it's got jump, if it's got jet, you'll get some use out of it. Next up, we're going to have a look at before we move on to the relics, let's just sum up the traits and see how good they are. I think there are 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 good ones. The good ones are Ambush of Blades, Iron Distant Events, Falcon's Swiftness, and probably Fate's Messenger most of the time. The other 2 are a bit more situational and rely on your army build to work. So, yeah, 3 good ones, debatably 4, and 2 situational ones. I'm certainly not going to argue about that as a set of warlord traits. Now, relics, or as they're known in this codex, the Remnants of Glory. We'll do their points cost at the end because, like all 7th edition codices, the points costs are at the opposite end of the codex to the actual list, which, if you've got an E codex, is a nightmare. So, the first one we have is Kernus's bow, Kernus, whatever. His bow, which is actually a pistol. So it's a 12-inch range, strength 4, AP3 pistol that has rending. This is just good. It's a AP3 bolt pistol that's also rending, so it will become AP2. Absolutely no complaints about that. Generally, you do have good ballistic skill in Eldar, particularly among your HQs. Their ballistic skill is ridiculous, so you're pretty much always going to be hitting with it. Strength 4 is average, so 50-50, maybe 2/3 chance to wound, and AP3 is good, and it can wound monsters on 6s, and at which point if you do roll a 6 it becomes AP2, so decent. Second up is the Shard of Anaris, which is a melee weapon. It's a melee weapon with +2 strength and AP nothing. It's rending, but it also has a rule called Vol's Work. So what it does is it gives you Fearless, which is good considering Ancient Doom is a thing, but kind of not that good because your HQ leadership is normally stupendous. In a challenge, attacks made this weapon have Fleshbane and Instant Death. This is where this weapon becomes good. So it always wounds on 2s, is AP2 on a 6, and has Instant Death even though it's AP nothing. If you need to one-shot lightly armoured characters, Orc War Bosses, primarily Orc War Bosses come to mind, this will be amazing. And you do have a 1 in 6 of one-shotting anybody who doesn't have an invulnerable save, like Tyranid Hive Tyrants. So this is pretty good, but it's not amazing because unless you do roll that 6 in a challenge, it's not that good. Because at the end of the day, it's what am I trying to compare this to? A poor man's Orc Big Chopper. In normal circumstances, you have to get into a challenge to make it any good. Although Fearless, won't complain about Fearless. Next up is the Uldan Long Rifle. Oh, so I'm going to make this point. This is Eldar. Eldar names are a nightmare, so if I butcher some, I apologise. So the Uldan Long Rifle. This is a sniper that is heavy 1, strength X AP3, with a range of 120 inches. That's 10 foot. 10 foot. For context, that is enough to literally draw a line around a 6x4 board from one corner to the other without crossing the board. You can go along the long table edge and then down the short table edge, and that's how far it shoots. This is ridiculous. This will hit everything on the board. And it's an AP3 sniper. Bear in mind though, it will always wound on 4s, 50-50s again, but your ballistic skill is generally quite high. Unless you're a Vindicare assassin and then you always miss. Anyway, so it's an AP3 sniper with a stupidly good range. Pretty decent. Wouldn't call it ridiculous, however, because it's a heavy weapon, so you lose battle focus if you want to use it with any effectiveness. The next one is Falcu's Wing. Falchu? This is Eldar names. A model with the wing can run up to 48 inches in its shooting phase, provided that it did not manifest any psychic powers or shoot. If it does so, it cannot shoot or charge for the remainder of the turn, but can re-roll failed cover saves until the start of your next turn. So, this is the last turn smash and grab trick. Don't give this to a Farseer, or anybody who uses psychic powers, because you'll always be using those psychic powers. Don't give it to someone who's got a ridiculous gun, but give it to someone who's got a decent gun, and or decent melee weapon. You may not be able to use it on the turn you move, but if you can stay alive, which with a good armor save and re-rollable cover saves, you will, normally, you can then get off a nasty shot into the rear of something or a very easy charge without really trying. No, it doesn't change your unit type, so you don't become jump while you take this thing. It just gives you basically a teleport, which is pretty helpful. I'm not going to argue with it. So give it to a guy with a decent gun and or melee weapon, teleport him into some cover near the enemy lines, and watch your opponent scramble to deal with him. If you can get him out of assault range of things, that's also worth it because it just stops him being tied up. Next up we have the Fire Saber. It is +1 strength, AP3 melee, so it's a slightly better power weapon, that also has Soul Blaze and Wildfire. So whenever the Fire Saber's Soul Blaze rule inflicts 1 or more unsaved wounds, roll a d6 for every unit, excluding the bearers, that includes friends and foes, within 6 inches of the unit that suffered the wound. On a 4+, that unit takes a Soul Blaze hit as well. This Soul Blaze does not benefit from wildfire, so you can't just set the entire board on fire. So this is something you need to be careful with. You want to be using this on a character who's going in on a lone charge with just himself and his unit. No one else. Or certainly nobody in the same combat who is from your army, because of the chance you'll set them on fire. So bear in mind, it says whenever... Oh, it's one or more. So you're only going to roll one, so you don't roll one per unsafe wound. That's good. So cause an unsafe wound, set the enemy unit on fire. Try and charge into the middle of the enemy battle line. So this one combos quite well with a lone guy with Falco's Wing, because you can teleport and then charge in and set half the enemy's board on fire. Could be fun. You'll die doing it, but it could be fun. Then we have the Phoenix Gem. One use only, it's resurrect, basically. So immediately before you die, are removed as a casualty, roll a d6. On a 1, you're dead. Tough. On a 2 to 6, center the large blast marker over the model. Each unit, friend or foe, suffers the number of strength 4 AP 5 hits equal to the number of models excluding the bearer that's in their unit under the template, even partially. If you cause an unsaved wound, you don't die. You come back with a single wound. If you don't kill anything, you're still dead. So again, this one combos well with the Falco's Wing, in that you can charge in, and when you die, you explode. And if you kill anything, or cause a single wound, you come back again and your opponent's got to kill you all over again. Or use another unit to kill you rather than maybe reallocate their attacks. You may also want to consider putting this in a unit who has a character in a flimsy unit, like Guardians, because you need to kill something to keep the character alive. That's essential. Because if you don't cause an unsafe wound, you die. So you need to have something that you can kill, which if you're not in melee with the enemy, has to be one of your own guys. So you may want to put it in a unit that's guaranteed to die, like Guardians. Finally, we have the Spirit Stone of Anafwan, which is the Farseer. Every time the bearer of the Spirit Stone attempts to manifest a psychic power, you can choose to reduce the warp charge cost by 1 to a minimum of 1. However, if you do so, you cannot use your Rune Armor's Invulnerable save, which is the 4+ Invulnerable save I was talking about, until the start of your next turn. Just want to point this out. Farseers and Warlocks and Spirit Seers have no armor save. They only have that Invulnerable. So if you use this, you have no save at all. The only ones who'll get a save will be Skyrunners. So Jetbike Seers can get some use out of this, but again, if you get hit with something that's AP 3, you've got no way to save against it. So this is a calculated risk to use the Spirit Stone. I think it can be worth it, particularly if you're a Farseer using Runes of Fate, which we're talking about in a second, but don't know. Don't know how good it is. Something to think about if you want to use. Right. How expensive are the relics? Let's find out, because they're at the other end of the codex, I think. Yes, here they are. So, the bow, which is your little AP3 pistol, 10 points. Pretty damn good. The Spirit Stone does not replace a weapon, may only taken by Farseers or Spirit Seers, and costs 15 points. On a Jetbike Farseer, you may or may not want this. You don't have to use it, remember to drop the cost, but it's something to think about. The Phoenix Gem, 25 points. The Long Rifle, the Sniper, 25 points. The Wing also doesn't replace a weapon, 30 points. The Fire Saber, which is your little set everything on fire axe, 30 points. And the Shard of Anaris, which is the instant death and a challenge weapon, 40 points, which is way too much. The pistol is good value, really good value, I think. I just replace a shuriken pistol with that, I'm not going to complain. That's a good weapon that combos with the split fire warlord trait, because you might want to use it to ping off, say, a Space Marine from a squad whilst your other guys decimate the allied guardsmen, or something. The Spirit Stone, decent cost. Phoenix Gem, expensive, but it's a resurrect, so it has to be. The Long Rifle is expensive at the cost of Battle Focus, but it will hit everything on the board in its AP3, so I can understand why. The Wing and the Saber are expensive. I can understand why the Saber is, because it's just a better power sword. The Wing is also expensive, but for the objective grabbing and the sort of charge in, murder everything, I can see why the Shard is overpriced, I think. So the combo of the Wing and the Saber and the Phoenix Gem would set you back 85 points, but holy hell would it be hilarious to pull off. Right. Let's do some psychic powers, because that should be fun. Now, Eldar are pretty unique in their psychic disciplines. They have 2 of them. In a way, they kind of have 3. So let's start with the Runes of Battle, shall we? That is generally Warlock powers. So how this works is an Eldar cycle that generates power from the Runes of Battle will not have access to 1, but 2 separate abilities. When using one of these psychic powers, choose which ability you're attempting to use before you roll a dice. And as far as I'm aware, because they're on the same slot, you can't try and cast both of them. So for example, if you will try and cast one half of the power, that counts as using that power, so you can't use the second half of that power, I think. Feel free to correct me in the comments below on that one. So, the primary power for the Runes of Battle is Conceal or Reveal, which is Warp Charge 1. It's either a blessing that gives your Psyker shrouded, or a malediction that gives a single enemy unit within 18 inches the loss of stealth and shrouded, which is pretty good. Reveal is possibly stronger, depending on the target, but Conceal is just good. I'm just going to point out now that, unless stated otherwise, the blessing half targets the Psyker, and the maledictions have an 18-inch range and 1 unit hit. I will keep referring back to it, but if I forget to mention it, that's what I mean. So, power number 1, Destructor/Renewer. Destructor is a heavy flamer with Soul Blaze. Template, Strength 5, AP 4, Witchfire, Assault 1, Soul Blaze. Renewer has an 18-inch range and is a blessing for a single friendly unit that heals a wound in the target unit. Can't return somebody to play. This combos potentially with a, what's it called? The Phoenix Gem, because you can actually top the dude up a little bit after he blows himself up, or blows up in order to keep himself alive. You can't resurrect, however. I think Renewer is better at keeping characters alive. Destructor has a place if you're going on the offensive. Embolden/Horrify. Oh, all powers are Warp Charge 1. All of them. So Embolden is a blessing that gives the Psyker and his unit fearless. Horrify is a malediction that gives the enemy unit within 18 inches -3 leadership. There doesn't appear to be that many leadership shenanigans in Eldar, but Horrify is definitely better than Embolden in most cases because your leadership is generally quite high. 3. Enhance or Drain. Enhance is a blessing, gives the Psyker and his unit +1 weapon skill and initiative. Drain is a malediction that, you guessed it, is a -1 penalty to weapon skill and initiative for an enemy unit within 18 inches. You don't really need either of those buffs. You don't need weapon skill and you don't need initiative in Eldar, rule of thumb. Your initiative is generally 5 and above, so you're going to be outrunning most stuff. Drain to knock off enemy weapon skill, meaning that they're more likely to hit on 5s. Now there's the trick. If you can cast both, then yes, good. But if you're in a decent combat unit, +1 weapon skill versus -1 weapon skill for your opponent, take the -1 every time. Number 4, Protect/Jinx. Protect gives the Psyker and his unit +1 armor save, whilst Jinx, you guessed it, is a -1 armor save for a single enemy unit within 18 inches, which means that if you have a 6 up armor, you have no armor. So this is ridiculous. So, let's see. Space Marines with a 4 up save? Sure. Tau and other Eldar and most things now have a 5+ save, so my AP5 weapons will decimate them? Yes. Orcs now have, and Tyranids now have no save? Sure. Terminators can now be hit by power weapons? Absolutely. This is ridiculous. Jinx is absurd. Protect is good. It's not as good as Jinx, but it is still good. So you want this power every time. 5. Quicken and Restrain. Quicken gives the Psyker and his unit an extra 3 inches to their run. Normally this will be d6 +3 inches. Restrain gives a single enemy unit cannot run. Turns them slow and purposeful, basically. So this is pretty good. Quicken can be useful if you're doing a battle-focused objective dash. And if you do cast this on the guy with Falcu's Wing, he will run 51. Just remember that. Restrain is also good if your opponent is trying to do an objective grab, and if they're guard who do orders, or Tau through their Hunter Cadre, where they can give out, run and shoot or something, or run and do something, or get better runs, then this is a good way to lock a unit down. Finally, Empower/Innovate. Empower gives the Psyker and his unit +1 strength. Innovate gives an enemy unit within 18 inches -1 strength. Generally take the -1. because you'll probably be scoring a fair few hits, and your combat wound rolls should be okay. You might want the +1 strength. I'm not saying you do not want it, but particularly against things with decent stats, -1 strength is going to be good because if it's strength 6, like most monstrous creatures, it takes it down to 5, so you don't suffer the problem that's called instant death, which is definitely good news. So, that's the Runes of Battle. They're good. The Runes of Fate, yeesh. So, the Primaris power is Guide. Warp Charge 1 gives a single friendly unit within 24 inches rerolls to hit when shooting. It's basically slightly worse Prescience, because I don't think Prescience... I think Prescience can reroll all hits. Otherwise, this is just a cheaper Prescience, and that's not fair. Number 1, Executioner. Warp Charge 1, Focused Witchfire, 24-inch range. The target model suffers 3 hits. Resolved at the Psyker's strength, which will usually be 3 or 4, with the Fleshbane special rule and AP nothing. So that strength is basically pointing at instant death. If the target does die from their 3 wounding on 2's AP nothing hits, another model in the same unit suffers 2 hits, as described above. If the second target is also slain, a third and final model takes 1 hit, as described above. Psyker strength, Fleshbane, AP nothing. If the Psyker chose the first target model, i.e. you've got like a precision shot, I'm not exactly sure how Focus Witchfires work, but if you get to an option where you can choose the target, you can choose the second and third target. If the first target was chosen randomly, then so are the second and third. If anyone survives, or there are no models left in the unit, then the power stops immediately. It's pretty good, this. Good way of knocking out, again, flimsy HQs like Orc War Bosses, or maybe Tyrannid Primes. It's very good at that. Number 2 is Doom. Warp Charge 2. Malediction, 24-inch range. If the target is not a vehicle, you reroll to wound against it. If the target is a vehicle, then you reroll armor penetration rolls. All armor penetration rolls. So if you want to reroll glances to get a pen, no, maybe not. There's all failed armor penetration rolls, not all armor penetration rolls. So rerolls to wound and reroll failed pens. Very, very powerful. Very, 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 very powerful. And Warp Charge 2, fair enough. Number 3, Will of Asurian, King of the Eldar Gods. Warp Charge 2, blessing that targets the Psyker, whilst in effect all friendly units, including the Psyker within 12, have Fearless and Adamantium Will. It's basically a better Embolden, is what it is. It's a better Embolden. So everyone in 12 is Fearless and has Adamantium Will. Against things like Demons or Grey Knights, this is going to come in handy, just for trying to deny stuff in an aura. Not bad. 4, Fortune. Blessing, friendly unit within 24. The target can reroll all failed saves and deny the witch rolls. You can put this on a Phoenix Lord who has a 2-up armor. Just think about that. What do we say about rerollable 2-up saves? Oh yeah, they're annoying as hell. Reroll 2 invulnerables are worse, but reroll 2-ups is shocking. So, yeah, this is just powerful. And rerolling Deny the Witch, particularly if you've got Will of Asurian off for Adamantium will certainly be useful. That power is just good. Number 5, Mind War, also Warp Charge 2, Focused Witchfire. Target and Psyker roll a d6 and add their leaderships. Now, generally you'll be a Farseer, so your leadership should be 10. Farseer's leadership, almost all other HQs are leadership. Yeah, your leadership's 10. So you roll a d6 and add 10, they roll a d6 and add whatever their leadership happens to be. If you draw, then the target is -1 weapon skill and ballistic skill until the end of the following turn. If you win, then you also steal a number of wounds equal to the difference between the 2 scores. No armor or cover saves are allowed. Given the fact that your leadership 10, you almost can't lose here. Tied score, you nerf 2 of their good stats, particularly their ballistic skill. That's a big nerf to give out to a model. And of course, if you win, which you should because you're leadership 10, then you're dealing out wounds with no armor saves. They'll get their invulns and feel no pains, but that's it. Again, low leadership HQs or low leadership anything just get pinged off by this. It is focused though, so bear that in mind. Number 6 is Eldritch Storm. This has 2 casting values. So each time the Psychic power is used, choose whether it be Warp Charge 3 or Warp Charge 4 before you take the Psychic test. Either way, it's a Witchfire. And in the Warp Charge 3 mode, it is 24-inch range, Strength 3, AP 3, Assault 1, Fleshbane, Haywire, Pinning, Large Blast. So it's a pipe plate of pinning and haywire and fleshbane. And it's strength 3, and it's also AP 3. So it's pretty good as a psychic power. Wounding on 2 is AP 3. Also haywire. Yeah, please. But it is War Charge 3. If you do go up to War Charge 4, then it's exactly the same, but it's an Apocalyptic Blast, which is the one that's a 10-inch pipe blade, if I remember correctly, because Massive Blast, I believe, is 7-inch. So you're going to hit a huge area of the board with AP 3 Fleshbane. Do I need to tell you how good that is? I don't think I do. That's ridiculous. Eldritch Storm and the entire Runes of Fate are very powerful. Honestly, the weakest powers here will be Executioner and Will of Ascian. The rest of them are all just good. I mean, Mind War is debatably good if you can hit your target or not, but all of them are pretty good, and some of them are downright ridiculous. So Runes of Fate, very, very strong. Runes of Battle are pretty good. That's all the psychic powers. Rule of thumb, just so you're aware, let me just find Spirit Seers here. Bum, bum, bum. They're Aspect Warriors. Here we go. Nope, I thought Spirit Seers were going to be there. They're not. So Farseers use Runes of Fate. I know that. Warlocks use Runes of Battle. I know that. The other question is the Spirit Seers, who are kind of like the Wraithy guys. They use Runes of Fate as well as a bunch of other disciplines. But we'll cover that in a future episode. So Runes of Fate you've got plenty of access to. And yeah, just be very, very scared of the Eldar on Psychic. They're very, very good at it. Right, we're going to wrap up this episode by taking a look at the detachment. This is called the Craftworld Warhost, I think? Craftworld Warhost, yeah. So you have 3 options for your core: a Guardian Battle Host, a Wind Rider Host, and a Guardian Storm Host. So you'll be needing, in any case, you'll be needing a Farseer, you'll be needing a Viper Squadron, you'll probably need War Walkers, probably need a Weapon Support Battery, you'll almost always have a Warlock Conclave, and then you'll either have Guardians, Guardian Defenders, or Wind Riders, which are your jet bikes, and they're your 3 cores. They'll have special rules associated with them, but we'll cover those at the end of the series. Your command choice is 0 to 3 per core. So you have 1 to 3 cores that you have to take, and 0 to 3 leaders per cores. So these options are Heroes of the Craftworlds, which is an Autarch, Prince Uriel, Eldrad, or Illic Knight Spear. Or a Seer Council, which is 2 Farseers and a Warlock Conclave, one of them may be Eldrad. Living Legends, which is the Phoenix Lords or the Avatar. And you can have up to 3 of those choices per core, which is pretty good. So you can have your, let's say, Guardian Battle Host, and then an Autarch, a Seer Council, and an Avatar, as an example. As your auxiliaries, these are 1 to 12 per core. And you have Rangers, Aspect Host, which is 3 units of Aspect Warriors in any combination, which is Dire Avengers, Howling Banshees, Striking Scorpions, Fire Dragons, Swooping Hawks, Dark Reapers, Warp Spiders, Shining Spears. There's a formation of 3 Crimson Hunters, called Crimson Death. And then there's a Shrine of Dire Avengers, which is 3 units of Dire Avengers. You can have a unit of Night Spinners, Fire Prisms, or Falcons, the Engines of Onslaught. A Wraith Host, which is a Spirit Seer, 3 units of Wraith Guards / Wraith Blades in any combination, a Wraith Lord and a Wraith Knight. And the final option is Wraith Construct, which is a Hemlock Wraith Fighter, a Wraith Lord, or a Wraith Knight. There will be extra special rules associated with some of those, and we'll come back to the detachment at the end of the series once we've covered all the formations. Then we'll try and build a basic Craftworld Eldar army. Of course, I'll do it terribly because it's me. So restrictions. You must include at least 1 core choice. For each core choice, you must include between 1 and 12 auxiliaries in any combination, and you may also include up to 3 command choices in any combination. The data sheets listed here may be included part of the course. Your command benefit is called Matchless Agility. So if a unit composed entirely of models from this detachment runs, it automatically runs 6. So Battle Focus means, combine that with Battle Focus, you basically have a 12-inch move all the time, which is very, very good on your infantry. Obviously things that can't run, like jet bikes, different scenario, but everything that can run automatically runs 6. And if you can add in extra ways to move further, such like Quicken, or quickening, whichever it is, or the warlord trait that you get, and just generally battle focus, you'll get a fair bit of mileage out of that trait because it makes your army hilariously maneuverable, though you may want to consider not taking Dark Reapers, possibly, just because you'd be going very slow. And with that, we come to the end of the episode. I know it's been a long one. We've had to go through basically 3 psychic disciplines, warlord traits, relics, detachments, and all that palaver. So, that's the end for today. Next time, I'm going to be doing something that I don't normally do, but I'm going to need to for this codex. I'm going to be taking a look at the unique HQs on their own. So this is going to be all the named characters. I would do HQs generally as a thing, but the list is really, really long. So I'm going to try and stagger the video a little bit. So next time we'll be taking a look at Eldrad. We'll be taking a look at Yeriel. We'll be taking a look at Illic Knight Spear. And then we'll be doing all of the Phoenix Lords. This should be fun. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at next time. I do hope you can join me for it. With that, it's time to end the video. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis. I'll see you all again. Bye for now.